Well, I think that people invest far too much. They look to the presidency for things that it was never intended to provide, and that no office really could. We look to the president in a way that British people do not look to. No one expected Tony Blair to save everyone's soul, to heal spiritual malaise within the country and bind us all together. And so I think that people expect too much of the presidency, and the candidates. I started out, I think, by talking a little bit about how the candidates talk about the office, but the candidates talk this way for a reason. So when Barack Obama goes to South Carolina, as he did months back, and gives a speech where he says, I believe that with the right presidential leadership we can create a kingdom here on earth. He's talking this way because people actually believe that the presidency, or at least in some sense believe that the president can heal all the nation's wounds, teach your children well, that the president is the person in the Hillary Clinton commercial who's going to answer the phone at 3 a.m. to keep your children safe from harm. Now, the distance we've traveled from the modest aspirations that the framers had for the office has pretty much guaranteed that there'd be an unhealthy concentration of power in the office. And the fact that people look to the presidency to fulfill all these needs means that the incentive of the person in the office is going to be to seek more power. I can give you one, I think, pretty good example of that, just briefly, is the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. As somebody put it, in the aftermath of Katrina, the same people, the same half of the country that have been complaining for years about George W. Bush being a dictator were suddenly screaming bloody murder because he was failing to do, in the aftermath of Katrina, a sufficiently convincing impersonation of a dictator. And none of this is to deny that the federal government deserves plenty of blame for the inept response to that catastrophe. But when you listen to the debates over it in the aftermath, it became clear that the blame was going far beyond what FEMA was actually legally responsible for, and people sort of expected the president to swoop in like a superhero, right, and take care of this problem. Well, predictably, George W. Bush went to Congress and started lobbying for a law that would make it far easier for the president to take military command of a disaster area and declare martial law and use troops in policing situations, which the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act restrain him from doing. And he got that. He got that power in the fall of 2006. And for a couple of years, the president could have been the potential commander of a federal war on hurricanes and had enormous power to use standing armies at home. Yeah. The provision was actually repealed quietly, thanks to Senator Patrick Leahy in January. But I think it's a good example of how the expectations that people have of what the office should be capable of lead directly to a concentration of power in the executive branch.
Yeah. This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.